Welcome back to Two Keto Dudes. This is Carl Franklin from Connecticut in the United States. And in February 2016, I put myself on a ketogenic diet to take control of my metabolism. In just 2.5 months, I managed to reverse all my markers of type 2 diabetes with diet alone. As of now, I'm 80 pounds lighter with no signs of diabetes or heart disease.
Hi, I'm Richard Morris in Canberra, Australia. I've been on a ketogenic diet since April of 2014. When I started, I was very sick with complications from type 2 diabetes. Within 6 months of starting a ketogenic diet, all of my biomarkers of disease had disappeared. I've lost about 100 pounds. I've completely turned my health around.
And this show is a document of my progress through ketosis and Richard's experience thriving for years in ketosis.
Oh, yeah.
And hopefully that might help a few people who are curious about this kind of dietary hacking.
Yeah, we're not doctors. We don't want to give anyone any medical advice, but we are keen to share our own experiences. We're actually both software developers, so we're not afraid of a little technical detail, are we, Carl?
No way, no how.
We have done some research into our own deranged metabolisms and the science behind them. We hope to share some of that research. Where possible, we intend to put links in the show notes to cite research supporting any claims that we make.
And you'll probably work out pretty quickly that we're both foodies.
Sure are.
We love to cook and we love to eat. In every episode, we both share a keto recipe that cannot be ignored.
Ignore it, I dare you.
All right, man, let's start podcast number 95, 1 year of the Ketogenic Forums. Heard you say you're due for a little. So, Richard, do we have any apologies or corrections from last week's show?
Last week was the show with Professor David Ludwig, and
Yep.
I would not dare to try and correct a Harvard professor. But we did actually get somebody who suggested some corrections for both the Thanksgiving show and the show with Asim Malhotra.
Oh, yeah, right.
This is from Jace, and he says, "Hi, dudes. In Thanksgiving, Carl said that the Pilgrims were Dutch settlers, when in fact they were English, and they came from Plymouth in Devon."
That is actually true, and I went back and did my research, and they were English who went to Amsterdam first to flee persecution,
Gotcha.
and then came from Amsterdam to the New World.
Ah, I see. And he also says, as for Boxing Day in the episode with Asim Malhotra, we celebrate that in Britain, and its roots can be traced to St. Stephen's Day, which is essentially, its origins are found in a long ago practice of giving cash or durable goods to those of the lower classes. Gifts among equals were exchanged on or before Christmas Day, but the gifts to those less fortunate were bestowed the day after, and this is Boxing Day. So thank you, Jason.
Yeah.
Much appreciated.
Yeah, that's something I didn't really know, so I appreciate people widening our horizons, as it were. Thanks, Jason.
Yep, absolutely.
He also says, P.S., where can I find a copy of the music played in the Two Keto Dudes podcast? And we'll talk about that in just a minute. But first, we need to revisit what a ketogenic diet is.
Yeah.
A ketogenic diet is any diet that puts you in a state of nutritional ketosis, which means that you're primarily burning body fat as a fuel.
Yep.
And to do that, you need to lower insulin. And the best way to eat to lower insulin is to limit your carbohydrates to less than 20 grams a day, mostly from green leafy vegetables, maybe some nuts and dairy, stuff like that.
Yeah.
No sugar, no starch. For protein, it should be moderate. And for us, that's 1 to 1.5 grams of protein every day for every kilogram of lean body mass we have.
Right.
And then the rest of our energy we get from fat.
We get all of our energy from fat. That's exactly right.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So carbohydrates are really just incidental, and protein has a very important point in the body, and that is to build protein structures, build our body.
Yeah.
All of our energy we're getting from fat.
Yup. So how was your week, buddy?
I've had a pretty ordinary week this week, actually. You know, last week I hit the lowest weight that I'd ever been.
Right.
Since age 22. Obviously, I was lower before that. But I've been doing a lot of coding work for a friend. And so I've been getting between 3 and 4 hours of sleep a night for the past week, which is not a good thing. Yeah. And I put on about 3.5 kilograms in a week. And I can tell you, I haven't eaten 3.5 kilograms of food. So
yeah, it's funny that we know that lack of sleep raises insulin, as does stress. So you're probably getting a little dose of both of those.
Well, lack of sleep is stress. I mean, it is essentially the same thing. It's all cortisol. And as we heard from Jason Fung in the Obesity Code podcast, cortisol directly affects weight gain. And so stress does that. I've come to the conclusion that I really need to learn to sleep to satiety. And what that really means is that I need to go to sleep at least 9 hours earlier than I need to wake up, and I need to not use an alarm clock. And,
Nice.
and basically wake up naturally. And, if I only need 7 hours of sleep, I'll just be awake 2 hours earlier. If I need 9 hours of sleep, then that's fine. If I need 10 hours of sleep, I'm going to be an hour late for whatever I'm going to do that day. That's just going to be how it is. But I need to learn to sleep to satiety. That's really been a problem of mine. And I think I've mentioned before that when I was a software coder for almost 20 years, my commercial advantage over other developers was that I was fully functional on 4.5 hours of sleep every night. So I was able to get 3.5 hours extra coding development done every day. And over time, that does build up, and that is a debt that you end up paying.
Get older, it gets harder.
And the older you are, the harder it is to recover from it.
Yeah.
So I've had an epiphany that I need to work on my sleep hygiene.
Okay.
Anyway, how was your week?
My week was pretty good, Richard. I played an incredible gig with the band on Saturday night after being fasted for 2 days.
Nice.
And being fasted and then playing fasted with the band has turned out to be like a superpower for me.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Because I remember the way it was before I started keto and I was overweight and tired all the time. I could barely stand up all night. You know, when I play, I'm standing and playing and all that stuff. By the end of the night and it's time to break down, all I want to do is just crash. And then I'd have to break down the band and haul the gear back to, a 10-piece band, there's a lot of gear.
Yeah.
Haul it back to the studio. Now it's 3 or 4 in the morning before I get home, and it just killed me.
Yeah.
Now I have lots of energy. I can hit the high notes with ease. My playing is better, because my brain is more acute.
Yeah.
I can transmit what my brain, my feelings through my brain to my fingers faster.
Right.
So it's like a superpower for musicians or anybody doing any skill, really.
Yeah.
That involves your brain, which, hey, last time I checked, that's just about everything, right?
Yeah. I know Ivor says that before a presentation, he likes to fast for at least 12 hours so that he's sharp for the presentation. So it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, and speaking of music, and, Jason asked about the music during, in the Two Keto Dudes show.
Yeah.
As you may or may not know, I just said it, but I do the music for Two Keto Dudes and the Obesity Code podcast and Keto Woman podcast and the nascent Keto Families and Keto Kitties podcast. Yeah. And some of that music is just stuff that I have created for myself and turned out to be a good fit. Like Groover Get Out of the Way is the theme song for Two Keto Dudes. Yep. That was a song that my band, the Franklin Brothers Band, did. I wrote it. My friend and amazing guitar player, John Schofield, played guitar on it. And the video is there. It's linked on the page at twoketodudes.com if you want to watch the video. Interesting, the video is before keto, of course.
Yeah.
So
you see much more of Carl.
Yeah, you'll see much more of me. Yeah. But also, the music in the Obesity Code podcast is interesting because the theme song was done by myself and Doug Wolverton, who's a great trumpet player.
Yeah.
And that song is called A Typical Day. But during the music beds, there's just some ambient music that I've created for the Obesity Code, but also stuff from a project that started as a thing called Music to Code By.
Right.
And you were talking about how when you were coding in your youth, your superpower was being able to function on 4 hours sleep.
Sure.
And a lot of developers, especially young developers, software developers, do this. And the reason that they stay up all night is because they need uninterruptible time.
Absolutely. It takes time when you're developing to build a synthesis of the project that you're working on. You have potentially 1,000 different variables all interacting, and you need to hold them in your mind at any one point.
You're absolutely right. That's exactly it. Yeah. You have this abstract model that you have to keep in your mind, and when it changes, you have to recognize in your mind where in that big map it's changed. And so any kind of interruption just sort of just explodes it all.
Yeah, collapses it. And then you've got to build it all back up again. Yeah.
Right. So that's why I created the music. I did some research that found that children who are doing math, listening to Baroque music at 60 to 80 beats per minute, while they were doing math, did better on math tests and comprehension
Cool.
and in all of that kind of stuff. So I took the whole idea of tempo and modernized it. And you know, Baroque music is really kind of predictable and mathematical, so it's not really boring and it's not really distracting at the same time. But it's Baroque, and, you know, more people dislike it than like it, I think.
I actually like it myself, but that's just
I love Baroque music, but
me too.
Yeah, but it's not for everybody.
Sure.
But anyway, I took a modern approach, and I made these longer pieces. They were 25 minutes long. Turns out 25 minutes is a good amount of time to focus on one thing deeply and then stop focusing on it for at least 5 minutes to give your brain a rest.
Okay.
So this is all based on research. Anyway, long story short, Music to Code By did fantastic. I sold a whole bunch of it in the software world, and I rebranded it as an app called Music to Flow By.
Right.
Because flow is that state that we're talking about where you're getting immediate feedback on things. It comes from a book, Flow, by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi in the 90s, where he talked about these people like fishmongers filleting fish. You know, they're doing nothing but doing that, and it's effortless to them. It's just like they're getting immediate feedback. They're in this state of what he calls flow. Things are just happening. Time is flying by, and there's no speaking, there's no distraction, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it turned out to be, I think, a pretty good fit for the Obesity Code podcast for just sort of background music. Although we have had a few people say that it is a little bit distracting.
Yeah.
So come the new year, I'm going to take a new approach to music. You may hear less of that music to flow by in the Obesity Code podcast. But if you want to focus and you want to, you know, you have stuff that you need to focus on, it's good for that. So check out the app, Music to Flow By. That's all I'm going to say.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. So, Jason, I hope that answers your question and then some.
So I think we need to give away some loot.
Yes, we do. In particular, we're giving away a 2 Keto Dudes coffee mug to one lucky member of the 2 Keto Dudes fan club. And today's winner is Carol Loomis.
Well done, Carol. Congratulations.
Yeah.
You get a mug with our mugs on it.
That's right. And it says, keep calm and keto on.
Nice.
Which you should fill with your coffee or whatever else you want to put in it.
So how do you get in the drawing to win one of those, Carl?
Well, you have to join the 2 Keto Dudes fan club.
Okay.
To do that, you go to fanclub.2keto.com. You answer a few simple questions, including your email address, and then you're in the fan club. That's all there is to it. We randomly pick somebody every show to win a mug or something else.
Nice. And if you don't want to wait to win a mug, so you can't wait to win the lotto, you can just go and buy one at gear.2keto.com and pick yourself up a T-shirt that says something witty on it.
Or anything else. There's all sorts of stuff. I didn't even realize this because we just set it up and forget about it, right? But there's a onesie.
We have a 2 Keto Dudes onesie.
Apparently we do. I don't know.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is awesome. Yeah. Well, that brings us to a little segment of our show we call Mail.
What you got?
Well, I went looking through the iTunes reviews, and man, they're just great. Great feedback, people.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does count as mail. We have like over 170 reviews up there, and 99% of them are 5-star reviews.
Wow.
Yeah, it's great. So this one says, I'm a former bodybuilder and power lifter that due to sickness over the years put on a ton of weight. My biomarkers for disease have been out of control and getting worse over the past 12 years, and I've been to the doctors numerous times because I never feel well. 4 years ago, I was diagnosed pre-diabetic, and this year, full-blown diabetic.
I can relate.
And he's talking type 2, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I've been doing keto for a little less than 4 weeks now using the strategies that Carl and Richard speak on, and for the first time in years, my blood work is basically normal.
Wow. Well done.
Yeah. Except for my HbA1c, which because it's an average...
Yeah, well, that's over 3 months. So.
On my next visit, it will be lower. But it was probably super high because I was eating ice cream, cake, drinking iced tea, slushies, and massive amounts of starches and carbs every day.
Yeah.
Thank you, Keto Dudes. And if anyone wants to change their health, listen to these dudes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And they just go on like that. It's wonderful to hear these stories. People keep sending them to us. They inspire us to go on and keep doing what we're doing. So what you got, Richard?
So I've got a message from the Ketogenic Forum, and this is from Brian. And Brian says, "Hey, Richard, curiosity is finally getting the best of me, and I have to ask, is there a story behind the hat? I can't help but think I'm not the only one who's wondered." And Steph actually responded by quoting, "A man walks down the street in that hat. People know he's not afraid of anything." Damn straight, Steph. It's actually from a TV series called Firefly, and the movie was called Serenity. Yeah. And Julie and I got into the show after Fox had killed it. So there was only... Spoiler, there's only one season of this show, and it is so good that it really should have gone for 7, 8, 9, 10 seasons. But, it was killed after a year, and but it became a cult classic. And we were watching the show, and at this stage, Jules was into knitting. She goes through these phases. She gets into cheese making, and she gets into making clothes, and she gets into knitting this season. And she decided that she would knit one of the hats. It's actually a beanie from one of the characters of the show, a character named Jane, the hero of Canton, for anyone who watches the show. So she decided she'd knit me a cunning hat, and she actually got a recipe for it. I guess you call it a recipe or a pattern for it off the internet, and got the exact colours of yarn to use for it. And so she knitted me this hat, and I was wearing it in one of my first weight loss photos, and it just became a thing that I would wear this hat. And for this, I'd wear it during podcasting because I wear headphones when I podcast, and this hat traditionally has to be misshapen and over large. It's too large on the character's head. It's actually it's really an ugly hat.
It is kind of.
That's the whole point of it. So, but it actually fits really well over my headphones, and on a cold day, it works really well to keep me warm. And also, it turns out that the little flaps down the side give me some audio isolation on my mic's boom. So, so it's actually a magical hat for audio. So when I was asked to speak at the Low Carb Down Under conference at the Gold Coast, it was in the middle of summer, and we're at the beach, so it wasn't a good idea to wear a woolen hat. So what I did was I had a T-shirt made up with a picture of a liver wearing the cunning hat, because, a man walks down the street with a liver like that, he's getting a lot of ketones. So that's where the hat came from. So for those people who are wondering,
that's a great story.
That's the background.
And you're going to continue to wear that, I'm sure.
I think I'll be wearing it at Breckenridge. I'll be wearing. I've actually got a photo of Jimmy Moore wearing it.
Yeah,
so
that's great.
That's kind of funny too.
Well, we're here today to talk about the Ketogenic Forums and just a little bit of history, maybe before we get into it. If you listen to any of our older podcasts, you hear us talk about our Facebook group.
Right.
And, fb.2keto.com, which now goes to a different place. And we shut down our private Facebook group at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Well, in December, really, because we found it very difficult to manage the Facebook group. First of all, people were being mean to each other, which we don't like at all, and it doesn't further anyone's cause.
Right.
And secondly, people were not reading. So, one of the things about Facebook, and Richard will explain this in a minute here, but one of the things about Facebook is it's designed to keep you just scrolling. Nobody scrolls back to read what anybody posted 5 seconds ago, which may answer their question, but they don't do that. They always go ahead. They want the latest thing. So why is that, Richard? Yeah,
so the way that Facebook works is that it's designed to tickle your novelty center of your brain. And it does this to essentially make you forget that you're being given ads. So as long as they give you something novel all the time, it actually tickles a part of the brain called the ventral tegmented area of your brain.
Ooh, I love it when you talk dirty.
It responds to novelty. And so one of the problems is that with Facebook is that if you've seen something before in the past and you want to go back and search for that again, Facebook is not incented to give you that information again, because as soon as you see something on Facebook that you've seen before, all of a sudden you notice that there are ads all over it. But if you only see new stuff, your brain is lulled into a false sense of security, and it doesn't notice that it's being advertised all the time.
And as a result, and we don't know why, but search doesn't work. So when you tested this Richard actually wrote an article on why Facebook, isn't conducive to good knowledge and finding things.
It wasn't just one article. I wrote it about 30 times.
Right. And you used that technical term for that part of the brain.
Yeah.
And then you went back and searched on that term, and it was like, nope, I don't have anything there.
Yeah. It was a very unique term. So it would have been something that should have been found. There should have been 30 instances of it because, as I say, I wrote 30 copies of this. And I even encouraged people to do a search on Facebook for that exact term. Ventral tegmented area. And, they'd do the search, and if they'd seen my posts before about it, they wouldn't be given them in the search. So it became a very poor way for us to provide information for people. And that's the main reason they were going to the forum, was to ask questions about keto and to get responses.
Yeah.
And
we recognized there was a social aspect to Facebook that people really like. And people do like, I still like going to Facebook and just reading the feed and seeing what my friends are up to in a sort of stream of consciousness way. That's fun. And so we liked that, but we also wanted to provide a permanent database of, of articles and things that people can search for, so they don't have to just throw a question out to whoever's on Facebook. They can go and look and see what has been thought of and, written down previously. So that's why we started this forum. And we went to our friend Jeff Atwood, who was one of the inventors and managers of StackOverflow.com, which is a very, very successful forum for technology.
Yeah.
Software developers go there and they just type in their question and they find the definitive answer on something. So he left Stack Overflow and started his own software company with a very similar platform called Discourse. And that's what we used. And so we started paying for it out of pocket, and now it's paid for by our Patreon. So I'll let you take over the story from here.
So when we decided that Facebook wasn't working for us, we decided we'd have a Viking funeral and we'd blow the whole thing up. And so we told everybody like 2 months beforehand, on this date, we are shutting down, we are switching off the Facebook forum, and we had 13,500 members. And there are bigger Facebook groups. Tim Noakes has got one with 1 million people in it, but that's a fairly decent size. And a lot of these Facebook groups, they like to advertise to their members. So anyone who has a larger group is considered to be able to make more money from them. That was never a thing for us. We didn't really care about that. But a lot of people said to us, you're mad. Why would you throw away 13,500 members, a large enough forum that you built? We even had one guy offer to purchase the forum from us so that he could then use it to, I don't know, he was going to sell exogenous ketones or something. He was willing to offer us $100. Yeah, we told him to get stuffed. But anyway, a lot of people said to us, you're mad. Why would anyone in their right mind have a Viking funeral for a successful Facebook group? And we said, well, we think we've got a technology solution that's better. And that was at the end of 2016. We went live on Boxing Day of 2016. So that was the day after Christmas. And I can let you know that as of today, which is the 10th of December 2017, we have in the forum, Ketogenic Forums, 14,343 people.
Yeah,
they said it couldn't be done.
So in 1 year, we got as many people and more as we had in Facebook.
Yeah.
And there you go.
Absolutely. Now, the Ketogenic Forum serves 1.1 million page views every month.
Wow.
We have, of those 14,343 users, we have only ever had 4 people suspended. And
that's remarkable.
I know. And we have the ability for you. It's basically a system where the users actually police the system themselves. So there's the ability to raise flags when people misbehave. And, if somebody writes something that's trolling, they'll get hit with a couple of flags, and an admin will be able to look at it and decide whether it is trolling or whether it's reasonable. In most cases, we leave the post up.
Yeah, because most of the time what people consider trolling is an alternative viewpoint.
It can
and
be.
We're all for alternative viewpoints. You know, somebody honestly says, hey, here's an article that somebody posted, and, we look at it and the science is wrong, but it's fine. Let's talk about this, right? So it will go through, and then we have guess what? Intelligent discussion.
Exactly. It's a teachable moment.
Amazing.
Really. Yeah, it's an opportunity to talk through an issue and to have some experts suggest some ideas and to have people shoot them down or to support them, and in the end, we end up with more information. So we've only ever had 257 flags in the entire year. So there's not a lot of this happening. I think people who come on looking to troll, and there are some people who do that just because they like pulling the wings off flies kind of thing.
Yes,
There will always be people like that. Those people get no gratification. They don't get what they're looking for and they move on. It's much easier to torment people on Facebook. So we've had, in the year that the Ketogenic Forum has been running, we've had 9,500 topics.
Now, what's a topic?
A topic is a question. A topic is when somebody posts the beginning of a thread. So they do the initial post of the thread, and then everybody then responds to that. And we've had 120,000 posts responding to those 9,500 topics.
Wow.
And each of these posts people can like if they like, so they hit the heart button on it. And we've had 280,000 likes in the past year.
That's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. From about 9,000 topics, so that's outstanding.
But what I like the most about the forums is that when you go there looking for an answer, you can search, you can type in, hey, why am I stalled, or something like that. Yeah. And then you see all the posts that come up in order of relevance to what you're talking about. And typically people will find the answer before they post a new topic. And even when you do go to post a new topic, if Discourse thinks that it's similar to one that's already been suggested, it'll say, hey, while you're typing it, it'll bring it up on the side and say, does this answer your question?
Yeah. It's brilliant, isn't it? Yeah.
It is brilliant.
So somebody, Doug in this case, posted in one of the threads today that he swears that this forum is like taking 3 or 4 college courses at the same time. And the weird thing is that every single one of those courses holds your attention.
Awesome.
And I appreciate all the smart people that come on the forum. It really is a helpful place. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, it does. And I want to bring your attention to a couple of really great topics that seem to go on and on and on. This one was started by Shane Barnbrook in December of 2016, and it's called the Super Duper Real Life Photo Thread.
Right.
And it's very easy. If you just go to forum.2keto.com, click on the search and type in photo thread, it's the first thing that comes up.
Yeah.
And so people are putting in their progress photos, their before and after photos. And it just goes on and on and on. There's been 614 posts.
Wow.
As of today. And if you go there, you might notice that this thread is in a category called Progress Before and After. Right. And it has a little lock on it. And what that lock means is that it's not public.
Yeah.
So you have to be registered and you have to have used the forum in the web browser for about 15 minutes before you can have access to that. And then you get access to all the locked things. But the whole idea is you cannot share them.
Yeah, you have to be a person. You can't be a bot, and you have to have an email account, and you've got to be using it in a normal way for 15 minutes or so. And that really stops places like Google from indexing sensitive information like people's photos. So we don't. That's the main reason that we made that particular subcategory locked and protected from Google. We have an unlocked one, which was actually started by Daisy, and this is in the subcategory Boring Keto. And this post was, "What did you eat today?" And there are 3,393 posts in this topic. It is like the killer thread of all threads, and it's basically people just posting food porn. This is food, keto food that they've managed to get their restaurants to configure for them, or they've cooked for themselves. And there are some admins of the board who were invited to be an admin purely because they made such wonderful pictures in this particular thread. So that's outstanding.
It's amazing. So there's a lot of good stuff there. There's good friends, new friends that you'll meet, and a lot of great science to read. There's a whole show me the science category.
Yeah.
And this is where people find studies out on the internets, and they post them and say, what does everybody think of this? And the discussion is great.
Yeah.
And some people disagree, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's just, it's an amazing civil place.
Yeah. So I posted one in Show Me the Science today called Cutting Carbs Can Increase Your Risk of Diabetes. And
really?
Really. And this article is, saying that experts are warning against this trend of Australians cutting carbohydrates from their diet. And this paper is a paper of record in Australia. It's the Sydney Morning Herald, so it's like, I guess you could say, similar to the Washington Post. And this is what I would call fake news, because they say that the evidence to support their statement is unequivocal, and yet they go on to present no evidence. And the studies that do get used for this kind of thing are associational studies that are weak associations, and there are associational studies that show the exact opposite. What I can tell you is a lot of people on the ketogenic forums have reversed type 2 diabetes by not eating carbohydrates, and Carl and I are among them, and there are thousands of us. So, if cutting your carbs increases your risk of diabetes, then I'm yet to see the evidence of that.
I have yet to see one person who has cut carbs and got diabetes.
Right.
I've never seen it.
No. I've taken statins and gotten diabetes. That's a common pattern, but no.
I've eaten whole grains and gotten diabetes.
Yeah, absolutely. I've eaten 6 to 11 serves of grain products every day, and I followed the Diabetes Australia recommended diet and went from being pre-diabetic to being diabetic, which they would say is just what happens with diabetes. Diabetes is a progressive disease. It never goes backwards.
Or you did something wrong. You didn't follow it correctly. And
obviously,
guess what? They can't prove that you did.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I can prove that I don't have diabetes. And
I can too, yeah.
I can also show them my dietary diaries, and I can even measure my respiratory quotient, so that there is no doubt that the energy that my body runs on is purely fat.
Or your zero calcium score.
Well, actually, I can show that it has not damaged my cardiovascular risk at all because I have a zero calcium score. Yes, that's true.
Yeah, that's right.
And I have an HbA1c of 5.2, so which is a lot better than the 11.2 I had when I was eating their silly diet.
It's silly diet. Well, you bragging about it on Facebook, of all places, we're, dissing Facebook here, but, that's how I initially found out about your success, because you were saying, hey, look at me.
Yeah.
I've lost all this weight and I've gone from diabetic to non-diabetic, and I did exactly the opposite of what the Australian authorities told me to do.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was so renegade and so, amazing. You see, here's the thing. We all know low carb is amazing, but everybody in the back of their mind has this little devil on the shoulder that says, you're going to die, you're going to kill yourself, you're going to eat all that fat, and you're going to clog your arteries and blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
When we decided to blow up our Facebook group, our goal was actually to build a hub network of information that would support thousands of Facebook groups, but all small groups, local, in a community, or local amongst your family, or, so the ketogenic forums for us was a way to amplify our reach by several orders of magnitude. And I think that's been quite beneficial for what we're trying to do. And I mean, our goal is really just to try and give people the tools necessary to reverse their diabetes.
And what we've started to do is incorporate blogs from experts that we admire. And so when they post to their blog, it goes right into a category on the forum.
Yeah.
So therefore, what you'll end up with is when you search the forum, you're searching across not just what's been posted there, but all these great blog posts.
Yeah. And you can see posts from Jason Fung's Obesity Code. You can see posts from the Keto Woman podcast, and you can see from other experts. And the good thing for the person who's got the blog is that they now have access to 14,383 low carbers who are logged in and keen to comment. So, it's a great community. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a great community. And for the average casual user, they get to search across all these things in one place without having noise, they don't to sift through.
Absolutely.
So we want to encourage people to continue to use the ketogenic forums. And the best way to go there is forum.2keto.com. Now, as Richard said, we don't want bots. We don't want trollers. And we have a little wall of defense, and it's called a 15-minute trial period, right?
Yeah.
So you have to start with the website. You can't start with the app. You have to start with the website, register. Once you've registered, you log in. You have to use the site for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you get bumped up to the next level. Now you can download the app on your phone, and you can use that. The app is called Discourse.
Yep.
Discourse.
Yep.
And once you get there, you only go up.
Yeah. And we have this chain of trust where as you get more engaged in the ketogenic forums, your level of things that you can do gets greater, and so that you get more features available to you. And so that's a trust mechanism which allows the system to scale to very large numbers. We couldn't ourselves manage, with the 20 admins that we do have, all of the people on the forum if we had to have an admin checking every post. But the fact that the system actually manages all of that for us means that we can scale to very large numbers, which will be great.
Right. Yeah, as people use it more and, contribute more and maybe, read more and write more, they get more trust. And so they get the ability to do the policing and the flagging and all of that stuff. And, and that's the way it works. It's a self-policing civil place where you can find what you're looking for and you can have the social chat that you're interested in. Yeah,
it's been a good year with the Ketogenic Forum. We've really spoken to a lot of interesting people over the past year. We've done. This is actually good to have just a chat with just you and I, because it's been a while since we've had just a podcast with just Carl and Richard. Because when you think about all of the people we've had on, we've had Ivor Cummins on a couple of times. We've had Gary Fetke on 3 times. We've had Megan Ramos. We've had Dr. Eric Westman, Naisha Winters, who was the cancer doctor.
Dr. James D. Nicolantonio, Dr. Jeff Gerber, Professor Richard David Feynman, Gary Taubes, Dr. Peter Ballstedt,
Peter Bruckner, and Tim Noakes. How can we forget Tim Noakes? We're not worthy. And
We're still not worthy.
We're still not worthy. And then to follow up, Tim Noakes, we had Asim Malhotra, and just last week we had Professor David Ludwig. So it's been, it's been a rocket ride this year. We've got all these extra podcasts that we're doing. We're spending a lot of time on the Obesity Code podcast, it takes a lot of effort to produce it to the level that we do. It's not a matter of just hitting a record button and just letting it go.
Maybe we should tell people the process that we go through to produce that show. Yeah. If you haven't listened to it, go to obesitycodepodcast.com or just find Obesity Code Podcast in your favorite podcast player. But how it starts is with a patient, typically. I mean, we do these Q&A things, but patient-centric shows, I interview them and I get their story. And out of the story, a theme emerges.
Right.
And this has been the way it has been so far, and hopefully it will continue this way. A theme might be a big challenge for the person, or something that hasn't worked for a long time, or something that did work, but it's usually based on a challenge.
Yeah.
And then Richard goes to work and he comes up with what would you call it? A sort of a outline.
It's sort of a flowing script of how the story is going to develop. And sometimes, the patient will give us several pieces and they might not be in the order that we're eventually going to present them in. And so we have also cameos that we've recorded with people like Nina Teicholz, Gary Taubes, David Ludwig, Gary Fettke, and Jason and Megan.
Yeah, and Jason and Megan record bits related to the patient and related to the challenge. And so then all that comes to me, and I put the audio together so that we tell the story and do the narration, which sort of breaks up, everybody speaking into, so that you're hearing a new voice generally every 30 seconds or minute or so.
Yeah.
Something like that. And then we listen to it without music, right?
Yeah.
And say, yes, this is the story, or, somebody has a suggestion, then we rearrange some things or do whatever we need to tweak it. And then it gets musicified.
Yeah.
And then we put it on Wednesdays. But one thing that I really like about the show that you do besides the outline, Richard, is whenever there's a study, you go to town.
Yeah, I try and give an explanation of what the studies is about, what it was looking for, what information they found, and try and put it into a context so that it's easy to understand. So that's something we've done right from the get-go. We have made sure that we cite anything that we use, or we try to cite everything that we talk about. But in this case, we wanted to actually get the audio in sort of like a sidebar, a little bit like the book in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy movie, where it comes in and explains the Pan-Galactic Gargle Blaster or the Heart of Gold starship, and so so that's kind of how it comes across.
And you do a great job of that.
Thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
I enjoy doing that because I find that part of it fascinating, because what Jason's unique talent is being able to take complex subjects and turn them into actionable items for the everyman.
Right.
And so, that's his unique skill. But sometimes it appears to be a bit of an overgeneralization. What I've learned in doing this, in doing the research to find studies to back up what he's saying, is he really does understand the literature. It's kind of scary, and it's been a very enjoyable and rewarding experience doing that.
And Megan, of course, gives her experience with the patient.
Right.
And, she's the one who actually deals with the patients and sees them on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Jason is a busy guy. Not only is he, seeing these patients, but he also has his kidney patients.
He's a nephrologist.
He's a kidney doctor. So he has patients all the time. And if this whole record your bits on your own time idea was really a joy for Jason and Megan, because they're so busy. We don't have to have a set time to do a recording, and now there's pressure and all that stuff. It's like, hey, over the next few days, here's what we need from you, and then they can take their time and do it when they're relaxed and focused and all of that. So it's a great show, and the accolades are coming in on that one as well.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody. I guess that's really a wrap-up of our past year. We've had a lot of famous people on that we've been very grateful to have the opportunity to talk to. We've had a lot of our friends on the podcast. We've been able to share Keto Fest with everybody, which was awesome this year. And that's all going to be happening again next year. We're going to be getting ready to have a new Kickstarter for Keto Fest coming out in January.
That's right. So and just for those who don't know, it will still be in New London, just like last year.
Yep. It'll be double the size. That's our goal.
It'll be double the size, right? And the date will be the weekend of July 21st.
Right.
So we have yet to do the Kickstarter, but we anticipate the Kickstarter will go swimmingly, and we'll continue to sell tickets after that.
Yeah.
So we want to shout out to our friends who have been on the show: Brenda Zorn, Kim Howerton, Amber O'Hearn, Jeff Atwood, Daisy Brackenhall.
Yeah, Donna Lordy, Dr. Louise Reynolds, also Terry Lance and Matt Murray. Ian Kelly was on, your friend with type 1 diabetes.
Yeah, the type 1 diabetic. By the way, I played with Ian in the jazz band on Thursday night with my brother Jay.
Nice.
And he's just rocking it. He's just rocking. And people come up to me, "Hey, Carl, I've been carb free for 2 weeks. I feel great." And everybody's looking at us like, "Hey, aren't you supposed to be playing your guitar? Shut up."
It's jazz. I can stop whenever I want.
Yeah. Other people like Ron Coleman, the guy who did 46 days of fasting.
Yeah.
Tom Naughton, of course, is a celebrity in his own right. Dave Korzunski, Nick Mailer.
Yeah. Melanie Miller as well, who helped us out with all the stuff for Keto Fest. And Dave Feldman was on a couple of times. We had this whole thing at Keto Fest where he forced everybody to fast for 3 days, bastard. And then we feasted for 3 days, and we had a whole bunch of blood tests. Siobhan Huggins was also on, speaking of cholesterol, and our rogue dietitian friend Feng Yuan Liu. Yeah, Yuan was on, awesome. And she was awesome.
And Ian Robothon, the bicyclist from the UK, the cyclist, And Brenda and Tom were on again, talking about their heart issues. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Of course, Karen Ogilvie, she was a delight.
She was from Impulsive Keto.
Yeah. And of course, our Thanksgiving show with Brenda and her beau, Kevin Mountain.
Yeah. I've actually got some good news about him. He started out with an HbA1c, I think it was in 12 or 13, and after something like 8 weeks of keto, his HbA1c was down to 7.4, and he just announced on Facebook that his HbA1c is now 6.4. So he is officially not diabetic, but only pre-diabetic. And if he can get his HbA1c down under 5.7 and keep it there without drugs, and he's off all his drugs and off insulin, and this is a man who's severely diabetic.
He is.
He's getting dialysis for kidneys that are falling apart because of his diabetes. If he can get his HbA1c under 5.6, then he will only be getting less diabetic. Yeah. His diabetes will reverse itself.
And it should be noted that he did this not only being keto, but being fed by Brenda Zorn.
That's true.
Which is a huge advantage.
Yeah, that is. That is. So that was our Thanksgiving show. So we've had a good year, and
had a good year.
Yeah, it's been good. I'm looking forward to next year. We've got Breckenridge coming up very soon. That's the end of February, beginning of March.
Yeah,
and then we
anticipate a huge groundswell in ketogenic and a sort of a rethinking of guidelines and food things, and we think next year is going to be a sort of a milestone.
A banner year.
Keto.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We're going to be going forward with a couple of new podcasts as well, and we're at Secret Project. We're actually working on a book, but don't tell anyone.
Right. Please don't. It's just us talking, right, Richard?
Yeah, that's just us. So that's really our show. But there's one thing that we haven't done yet,
and that must be
recipes. So what do you got, Carl?
What I got is cinnamon donuts, baby.
What you got? I gotta get it in me.
Okay, whatever. Gotta get me some cinnamon donuts.
Yep. So this is not the Krispy Kreme donut that I ate a decade ago, right?
No. These are the ketogenic donuts. So instead of using flour, we're using almond flour. Right. Instead of using sugar, we're using sweetener. Mm-hmm. And, the rest is baking stuff like baking powder, cinnamon, nutmeg, salt, butter, sour cream, eggs, vanilla, good stuff.
Yeah, nice.
So for this, I got to tell you, I tried using this recipe, which calls for a donut pan, that has like the little donut shaped muffin tins or whatever. And I said, you know what? Let's go for lard. So I bought 3 quarts of lard, which was epic. There's a store here that caters to the Latino community.
Right.
And they have rendered pork fat in quarts for $6 a quart.
Nice.
And it's not fake because the tint is different in every one. The consistency is different. It's rendered pork fat.
Yeah.
Right, it's great.
So you're going to deep fry these and not bake them, right?
Well, okay. No, I ended up baking them because the deep fryer just tore them to shreds.
Yeah.
I put it in a Dutch oven. Mm-hmm. I heated it up to even lower than what was conventionally should be used for donuts, which is, 375. At 318, I put in a ball, and what happened was the outside cooks, and then shreds and falls apart in the oil, and now you have a raw dough ball. So
nasty.
Because it turns out that without the gluten in there or something, almond flour just doesn't hold together.
Sure. The egg won't work in that circumstance to hold it together. Normally, that's the trick.
No, the egg won't work. And I also used konjac powder. So I use konjac root powder because that's a nice gluey starch that we don't respond to. But that didn't help either. So I ended up using the donut pan. So what you do is you preheat your oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Mm-hmm. In a large bowl, you stir together the dry ingredients, which is a cup of almond flour. I made a double batch, by the way.
Okay.
It turns out that you can make about 6 donuts with a batch. Mm-hmm. So I made a double batch to make a dozen. So a cup of almond flour, a third of a cup of sweetener. Now, we all know that sweeteners come in different potencies, right? Some sweeteners, a third of a cup of, I guess, the sugar equivalent is what they're looking for.
Sure. So a third of a cup of like Splendor would be enough to sweeten a battalion. So
exactly. Yeah. So you want to be careful with that.
Yeah.
I used allulose.
Okay.
And it's a powdered allulose that's more like confectioner's sugar.
Yeah.
Consistency-wise, but it is not as sweet as sugar. Okay. So a third of a cup turned out not to be sweet enough for what I consider to be a cake donut. Sure. It was sweet enough for me, but not for other people. Mm-hmm. So you got to watch that. And I would do the sweetener last, right? You know, just wait until the end to put the sweetener in so you can do it a little bit at a time and figure out what you like. 2 teaspoons of baking powder, a teaspoon of cinnamon, a teaspoon of nutmeg, a quarter of a teaspoon of sea salt.
Sure.
A quarter of a cup of unsalted butter, measured solid, then melted, and that's half a stick melted. Yeah. A quarter of a cup of sour cream.
Interesting.
Sour cream gives it a tang.
It would do.
Yeah. 2 large eggs and half a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Now, you take the dry ingredients, which is everything up to the salt, and whisk together those, and then put the wet ingredients in another bowl and then combine them together. You know, if you want to do that, that's fine. You can also just put everything in a great big bowl. And I guess you want to get the eggs beaten first. I think that's the key.
Yeah.
Also, one little gotcha here is that if you melt butter and it's really hot and you pour it into eggs, guess what happens?
Curdles.
Scrambled eggs.
Yeah.
So you got to take the butter off the pan and let it get a little bit cool, but still liquid before you put it in there. All right. So you essentially fill the batter into the donut cavities about 3/4 of the way, but I just filled them up.
Right.
And you want to bake for about, 15 minutes and then flip them and then bake them for another 15 minutes. Now, if you have a non-stick donut pan, you just flip them out, turn them over, and put them back in.
Yeah. So they may end up hollowing out a little bit then, because what's going to happen is the donut shape is going to be a rounded shape when you bake it the first time. When you turn it upside down, it's going to flop down to the base of the pan, so you're going to end up with a fully rounded shape, and it's going to be hollow on the inside, really, isn't it?
Well, so what actually ended up happening is it wasn't hollow on the inside. I had to use my finger and sort of make a hole in the middle of it when it went in the first time. And then when you flip them, the bottoms are completely round because they were pretty much liquid.
Sure, yeah.
But what happens is the top sort of has that crumble, that cake crumble look to it.
Sure, yeah.
And that really doesn't round out when you flip them.
Gotcha.
Because they're already kind of set.
I see.
But that's okay.
Yeah, it's going to be like a cruller.
Yeah. So you may have to round out the middle of them after you flip them to get a true hole in the middle of the donut, if you even care. I don't really care. Now, when they come out, you want to let them cool. Cook them for another 10, 15 minutes until they're done. Let them cool for a while. And now you want to take some sweetener and some cinnamon in a paper bag, and you shake them up.
Yeah. Right. So you're going to coat them. Yeah.
Coat them. And I use, again, the powdered allulose with cinnamon. And, they were good.
Yeah. That's nice. I tell you a funny story about donuts.
Okay.
Back when I was living in Las Vegas, Krispy Kreme had just come to Las Vegas, and they have these machines, industrial donut making machines. It's a long production line. And if you've been to a Krispy Kreme store, you've seen them happen. In Australia, there is a Krispy Kreme in Australia, but we don't actually have the window with the production system, so it's less entertaining. But so anyway, in Las Vegas, we had these Krispy Kremes. Julie and I used to be able to go to the Krispy Kreme place, get 3 dozen donuts, take them home and eat a box each. So there's a dozen in each box. I know, right? So just think of how much glucose this was that we were eating. And this was when I was at my most diabetic. I was a sugar addict. And, now I've got to admit, that donut sounds good. I think I could probably eat maybe half of one, or maybe I'd eat one.
That's what I found.
But you wouldn't eat 12. So, people who say,
no. I could barely eat one. You don't dive into these like you are used to diving into a donut. No, they're actually just a nice little treat.
Yeah,
that
lovely.
You could take or leave.
Yeah, that's awesome. So anyway, Krispy Kremes was the downfall of me.
For me, back in the 90s when I was first married, it was Baskin Robbins.
Ooh.
And my ex-wife and I used to go to Baskin Robbins and each get a pint of ice cream.
Mm.
And we would do this 2 or 3 times a week and eat the whole effing pint.
Ouch.
Yeah.
That's a lot of sugar and fat. Yeah.
A lot of sugar. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as it turns out, it wasn't the fat that was the problem, right?
No, it was
but,
the sugar that was doing
lots and lots and lots of sugar. I think my favorite flavor at the time was pralines and cream. So it was sugar upon
plus
sugar
toffee.
with bites of sugar in it.
Yeah. Well, I don't have any desire to eat that kind of food anymore.
No,
I like making my own
can't.
ice cream, but I actually like making savoury ice creams these days, or at least not too sweet. So, and I certainly don't eat, as I say, I would not eat 2 dozen or 1 dozen donuts. I wouldn't be able to.
I could barely eat one, actually.
Exactly.
Now, almond flour is pretty filling,
absolutely.
People found this with the Fathead pizza is that, wow, I can really only eat two pieces and I'm done.
Well, there you go. With pizzas, I used to have like 2 large pizzas. And I'd be able to put them away. 2 large ham and pineapples. That used to be my thing.
Yeah.
And now I have a fathead. I guess in pizza sizes, it's about half this. It's like a medium. So I used to have 2 large pizzas. I can now share with Julie a medium-sized pizza tray over 2 meals. So, I'll have a quarter of that for 1 meal. I have 2 slices of pizza and I'm full, So it's remarkable, really.
I don't even make the crust anymore. If I'm going to make it, I'll just cook it in a pan.
Right.
With the cheese on the bottom.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to order pizza, I'll just get a large pizza with no sauce and everything on it, extra cheese. And, I got to give you this tip. Olive oil. Remember we talked about olive oil last week?
Yeah.
And how, there was this scare against olive oil that's, not olive oil.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out that if you go to a restaurant and ask for olive oil, most of the time you're going to get a blend. And it can be 65 to 95% vegetable oil.
Oh, nasty. That stuff will give you Alzheimer's disease.
Yeah, it'll mess you up.
Yeah.
And this, even at Italian restaurants, when I say, hey, can I have some olive oil? They say, no, you don't want ours. Because it's so I have now to go when I go out to dinner, I have to take a little bottle of effing olive oil in my coat and sneak it over my salad and my food because I can't trust it.
Carl Franklin, notorious olive oil smuggler.
It's
hilarious.
come to this, Richard.
It has come to this. So I think it's about time I did a recipe, and this is actually going to be one of your recipes that I've tweaked.
Okay.
So this is Carl's chicken salad. And I've done Carl's chicken salad before, and we know how we do that. You go to the store. It takes about 10 minutes to make this meal. Only if you let somebody else do the roasting of the chook. So go to your grocery store and pick up a roast chook. And it'll cost you $5 or so.
Yep.
Get half a head of celery. 1 chook, half a head of celery. And then normally you'd use mayonnaise.
Right.
But I'm going to change it up a bit here. So what you do is you pull the wings and the legs off the chook and you put them to the side. We're going to use them later on for garnish. And what you then do is you pull all the meat off the bones and you can toss the bones in an Instant Pot and make up some chicken stock. That's not part of our recipe, but that's what I do with the old bones. So I've got all the meat pulled off. Now I dice it, chop it into small 1 centimetre sort of half-inch dices and put it in a bowl. So we've got a bowl of diced roast chook. And any juices in the bottom of the pan that you get the roast chook in, chuck those in as well. Keep it as juicy as possible. So now you're going to take half a head of celery and you're going to slice each of the sticks vertically multiple times and then chop it up into a very fine dice. And so we're talking about another centimetre, maybe a quarter of an inch dice on the celery, and throw that in with the chicken. So now normally with Carl's chicken salad, we'd add celery salt and we'd add mayonnaise. What we're going to do this time is we're going to add avocados and pesto. And now this is the kind of meal when somebody complains about all of their keto meals not being green enough, not having enough greens. This is an entirely green meal.
Oh my gosh.
So pesto is this sauce that comes from Genoa.
Yeah.
And you make it you take a wodge, which is about a handful of leaves of basil, so a wodge of basil, and you put that into a small blender. I use a Magic Bullet, but a small blender. And you're going to have about a handful of pine nuts. And then we're going to put about the same amount of volume as the pine nuts, so about a handful of grated Parmigiano Reggiano cheese. It's Parmesan, but don't buy the can of Parmesan that's pre-grated.
No.
Buy
real stuff.
Buy real Parmesan cheese and grate it yourself. This is going to go into a blender, so it doesn't have to be fully grated. You just put it in chunks as long as your blender is able to grind through and reduce it down.
You put in garlic and olive oil too, right?
Absolutely. So then you put in enough olive oil so that it blends into a sauce. If you don't have enough olive oil, it'll become a paste. And if you have too much olive oil, it'll be a liquid. So basically get it to the paste and then add a little bit more until it just starts to blend into a sauce. And I put in 2 cloves of fresh garlic. Now, I quite like the hum of fresh garlic. But if you don't like the heat, you can use roasted or fermented garlic. That's also good.
It also mellows if you let it sit. So if you let it sit in the fridge, the edge will come off the garlic.
I like the edge, so I make it fresh.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah.
Basically, you blend it up, and what you end up with is a ultra green, this is from the basil, ultra green sauce. And so if the chicken is cold, let's say it's been a couple of hours since you bought the chook and it's gone cold, warm it up a bit. So nuke it for a minute. And the reason for doing that is if you nuke the chicken and it's warm, when the pesto hits it, it will spread over the whole thing. It will melt a little bit and it'll coat everything. And so what you're trying to do is coat everything into green. And so then either put a lid on the bowl and toss it to blend everything, or get a spoon in there and just really give it a good blend. And so everything is green. And then the final touch is that you dice up an entire avocado and you sprinkle it over the top of the bowl. And you put it in bowls and garnish it with roasted chicken limbs.
Oh my gosh.
I've got a link of this on the Ketogenic forums, speaking of Ketogenic forums, and it's the bottom of the What Did You Eat Today, because I literally ate this today. It was delicious.
I made some chicken salad for Kelly yesterday.
Yeah.
And I think what I'm going to do for lunch is I'm going to take some of that and make some pesto and mix it all in. I don't have an avocado, but I do have a few Julie bagels, which are Fox Hill Kitchen's bagels.
Yeah.
Which you can get at bread.2keto.com. This is just amazing stuff.
Yeah.
And so I think I might have me a chicken salad sandwich for lunch. That's good.
Of course, if you have anything that you want to tell us, something we said wrong, something that you don't agree with, some more research that you found to support or refute anything that we've said, send it by email to dudes@2ketodudes.com or post it on our website.
And you can follow us on Twitter at 2KetoDudes, on Instagram at 2KetoDudes, and make sure to use the hashtag 2KetoDudes.
And of course, if you want to join the free Ketogenic forum, it's forum.2keto.com.
And if useless swag is your fancy, like t-shirts, coffee mugs, and onesies. With witty keto sayings on them, head over to gear.2keto.com.
And if you want a shot at getting some of that swag for free, join the 2 Keto Dudes fan club. You'll be eligible to win something in every show. Go to fanclub.2keto.com.
And if you feel like supporting our podcasts and our forums, think about making a pledge on our Patreon page at patreon.2keto.com.
Or just hit the donate button on our website at www.2ketodudes.com, or just go to donate.2keto.com.
And you can also see videos of all our podcasts and other videos, of course, on YouTube at youtube.2keto.com.
And if you haven't already, go leave us a review on iTunes. That's how new people get to know about what we do.
Absolutely. 2 Keto Dudes is brought to you by 2 Keto LLC, who strives to support the low-carb community with podcasts and other publications. And, my friend, keep calm and keto on.
Keep calm and keto on, Carl.
All right. We'll see you next time on 2 Keto Dudes.